Have you ever found yourself trying to force something to grow, like a relationship or a project or even a person, in an environment that just simply couldn't support it?
Oh, yeah. Like when you just keep watering it and, moving it into the sun, hoping sheer willpower is going to somehow override the actual laws of nature.
Exactly. And then when it inevitably starts to wither, you blame the plant
Right.
instead of actually looking at the dirt you stuck it in.
Right. It's a completely devastating cycle to watch, let alone, to actually be trapped inside of.
Well, welcome to this deep dive. We are broadcasting late tonight from the little station on Commercial Street in Atchison, Kansas.
Yeah, it's a beautiful night out there. You can actually see the lights of downtown Atchison from the window here.
You really can. And I think I just heard a freight train rolling through near the Missouri River a few minutes ago. It's that perfect, quiet, Midwest kind of evening.
It really is. The church bells were ringing a bit ago, and it just sets this incredibly moody, reflective atmosphere for what we're about to get into.
It totally does. Because tonight we are tuning into a Saturday night theater broadcast from the Chesterton Radio Theater channel. We're looking at Enid Bagnold's mid-century masterpiece, The Chalk Garden.
And if you haven't encountered this play before, you really need to prepare yourself.
So for sure, we are stepping into one of the strangest, most claustrophobic, and honestly, ultimately beautiful English houses that has ever been put on the airwaves.
Yeah, it's a house with this completely barren garden, a deeply troubled teenager, a mysterious governess, and, well, enough hidden secrets to fill like 3 detective novels.
Right. But our mission tonight isn't just to recap a mystery, even though, there's this incredible slow burn mystery right at the center of the story.
Exactly. We're really trying to pull apart the mechanics of a profound psychological and spiritual drama.
Yeah, we're unpacking how secrets operate, the really grueling process of actual healing, and that massive tension between human justice and absolute mercy.
Plus the whole surprising symbolism of a garden where, literally nothing seems to grow.
So before we walk into the house, we should probably talk about Enid Bagnold for a second, because her background is fascinating.
It really is. I mean, she had this incredibly long literary career. But most people, if they know her at all, they know her for writing National Velvet.
Wait, like the horse story? The one they made into the Elizabeth Taylor movie?
That is exactly the one, yeah. Which makes The Chalk Garden such a wild departure for her. Like, it debuted in the mid-1950s, which was a time when the whole British class system was kind of actively crumbling.
Right, post-war Britain was changing so fast.
Exactly. And critics still struggle to classify this play today. Like, is it a mystery? Is it a psychological drama? A family story?
Or maybe a spiritual allegory.
Right. Honestly, it's kind of all of them all at once, which is why it became this massive international success on Broadway and the West End.
So let's actually enter this house. Because to understand what we're dealing with, you have to feel the atmosphere of this Sussex manor.
Oh, absolutely. The house almost becomes another character in itself.
It really does. From the outside, it looks like this bastion of high-class British society.
Yeah.
But the second you walk through the doors, you realize it operates essentially as this really elegant, highly eccentric asylum.
An asylum is the perfect word for it. And the warden of this place is Mrs. St. Mom. She's played just magnificently in this radio production by Dame Edith Evans.
Dame Edith Evans is so good here.
Her voice acting is just, it's crucial. She gives Mrs. St. Mom this high, haughty, slightly breathless delivery. It's a voice that is just overflowing with self-importance.
It also constantly skirts the very edge of hysteria, right? Like she's talking nonstop just to drown out the silence.
Yes. And the radio play introduces her in a way that just instantly telegraphs her chaotic relationship with reality.
Oh gosh, the false teeth scene.
Exactly. The very first interaction involves her false teeth. She keeps her bottom teeth wrapped in a handkerchief on a table because they don't fit right.
Which is so gross, but also hilarious. And when her manservant cautiously suggests, maybe he's seeing a new dentist, she gets so offended.
She haughtily declares, you can't fit false teeth to a woman of character. As one grows older and older, the appearance becomes such a bore.
Which is such a wild piece of self-deception. Because her entire life is completely dedicated to appearances.
100%. She is deeply obsessed with controlling how everyone perceives her. I mean, she claims she's had 107 applicants for the job of companion to her teenage granddaughter, Laurel.
Right. Dozens came and went, and the one applicant she actually considers hiring, the only one left waiting in the hall, is the one who flat out refuses to provide any references.
It's such a bizarre detail. Why would this woman, who is obsessed with high society standards, hire a governess who won't explain where she came from.
I kept trying to figure that out, too. She tells the applicant, all the graces of life here go unveiled. In a village, one is down to the bones of things.
She actively hates the village. She isolates herself completely.
Right, so I was picturing this house as a museum, where the exhibits are still alive, but they're just slowly suffocating under the curator's weird rules. Why does she actively seek out broken people to serve her?
Because it's a mechanism of dependency. It isn't just that she wants to feel superior, though that's definitely part of it.
Oh, for sure.
But if you surround yourself with people who are fundamentally incapable of functioning in the outside world, they can't ever leave you.
Oh, wow. So they can never abandon her.
Exactly. Mrs. St. Mom is terrified of abandonment. So by forcing these damaged people to rely on her erratic whims, she's trying to manufacture loyalty.
She's trying to grow a family in a soil completely devoid of genuine affection.
That is exactly it.
And the ultimate irony here is that for all her dictatorial posturing, she doesn't even truly run the house.
No, she doesn't. That honor belongs to Pink Bell.
The man we literally never see.
Right, the unseen ruler of the manor. Pink Bell is the butler, but he suffered a stroke and is permanently bedridden upstairs.
But his influence just seeps through the floorboards into every single conversation. It's so creepy.
He dictates absolutely everything from his bed. He orders the wrong fertilizers. He demands the manservant report everything to him.
Wait, doesn't he even control the gardening from his window using like a system of mirrors?
Yes, he's like this malevolent, paralyzed Wizard of Oz. He functions as the ghost of the Victorian and Edwardian eras.
Which are completely dead at this point in history.
Exactly. He is inflexible, judgmental, and he insists on standards that just do not fit the reality of the post-war world anymore.
Like ordering rhododendrons to be planted in pure chalk.
Which is gardening madness. Rhododendrons require highly acidic soil to survive. And chalk is intensely alkaline.
But Pink Bell just doesn't care about the reality of the soil, does he? He only cares about his aesthetic demands.
Right. He represents an entire social system that just imposes its will on nature and people, completely regardless of the destruction it causes.
Speaking of destruction, if you want to see what this environment does to the human psyche, you just have to look at Maitland.
Oh, poor Maitland.
He is a total nervous wreck. He's the manservant, and we find out he actually spent 5 years in prison as a conscientious objector during the war.
Yeah, his quote is so striking. He says, "I went in there because I wouldn't take a life, but before I came out, I'd have killed a warder."
It's completely tragic.
Yeah.
He is so fragile, easily destroyed by the tiniest bit of criticism, and prone to throwing these massive dramatic tantrums.
He constantly threatens to quit, but he never actually walks out the door.
Which made me wonder, if he hates being criticized so much, why doesn't he just leave? Like, he's a grown man. Why stay in a house with a paralyzed butler and an eccentric grandmother who belittle him all day?
Well, you have to look at what prison actually did to him. He says in prison he was an ant among 1,000 ants.
So it stripped him of his individuality.
Completely. He is desperately seeking to be seen as a person again. And Mrs. St. Mom offers him something the prison didn't. She gives him personalized chaos.
Oh, that's interesting. Personalized chaos.
Yeah, he calls it the thunder and lightning and sudden sun. In prison, the cruelty was institutional and faceless. Here, it's deeply personal.
So it actually makes him feel necessary.
Exactly. He's formed this profound dependency on this unpredictable environment because it mimics the survival mode he learned in prison, but with the illusion that he actually matters.
So it's not that he enjoys the abuse, it's that he's terrified of invisibility.
Yeah.
That makes total sense.
Right. And right in the middle of all this dysfunction, we have Laurel, the focus of the entire household.
Okay, Laurel. She is 16 years old, but she acts like she's 12. And she is just performing her trauma at a volume of 10 constantly.
She is incredibly disruptive, setting bonfires in the garden,
Throwing salt on them to make the flames blue.
screaming just to get attention, and sharing these wild, completely fabricated stories with total strangers.
Like claiming her father shot himself when he actually died of a liver condition.
Or claiming she was criminally assaulted in Hyde Park on the exact night her mother remarried.
Okay, I have to be honest. Listening to this broadcast, I initially just felt like Laurel was an incredibly spoiled, manipulative brat.
That is a very common reaction, honestly.
I mean, if she were around today, she'd be on social media self-diagnosing and making highly produced videos about her generational trauma for views.
Oh, absolutely. She loves what she calls the small limelight. She actively views herself as a literary character in a tragedy.
She tells the new governess, "I am Delilah's daughter. Laurel has a poltergeist." Stones fall in the bedrooms, and words leap and change color. It's so dramatic.
She has cultivated this intense hatred toward her mother, Olivia, calling her a Jezebel. She just revels in her status as an abandoned child.
Well, that's the thing. Why should we view her as a victim when she's actively terrorizing everyone? Is she actually broken, or is she just an incredibly smart kid testing the adults to see who will finally stop her?
That's the exact friction Enid Bagnold wants you to feel. It's easy to dismiss her as a brat, but look at how her manipulation is being rewarded.
By Mrs. St. Mom.
Exactly. Laurel's primary wound is abandonment. Her mother moved to Arabia. But instead of helping her process that grief, the grandmother weaponizes it.
I remember Mrs. St. Mom actually says something like, "She is my parchment sheet on which I write."
I hope she will remember my life and times. I am your little immortality.
That is so chilling. She literally does not see Laurel as a human being with her own agency, just a blank page to transcribe her own ego onto.
Yes. Mrs. St. Mom encourages the dramatic lies because those lies keep Laurel alienated from her mother. If Laurel thinks her mother is a monster, Laurel stays in the house.
Wow. So Laurel knows she's playing a game, but she's been playing it so long she's lost her actual personality.
She is completely trapped in the performance. She escalates constantly, searching for a boundary, but the adults always cave.
Until she hits a wall that absolutely refuses to budge. Enter Miss Madrigal.
The immovable object. The last applicant. The woman with no references.
The radio play describes her as having the still look of an eagle upon a rock, and Mary Morris plays her with this spine-tingling calm.
Her voice just drops into the frantic energy of that house like a heavy stone into a shallow pond. It's amazing.
It totally shifts the energy. From the moment the interview begins, she completely inverts the power dynamic. Mrs. St. Mom expects deference and fear, right?
Right. But Miss Madrigal offers zero compliance. She casually mentions her great-grandfather was tried for corruption, and her grandfather had her father at age 75.
And when she's asked about her religion, she just flatly says, "My religion is private."
Even when told she might have to answer the phone, she refuses. She says it disturbs her to join two worlds, the outside and the inside one.
What really struck me is how instantly she diagnoses the foundational problem with the house and the garden.
Oh, her gardening knowledge is central to her character.
Yeah, like while Mrs. St. Mom is babbling about appearances, Miss Madrigal just looks out the window and realizes they are standing on pure chalk.
She hears about Pink Bell ordering rhododendrons, and she is visibly horrified.
She drops that incredible line, "The soil can't give what it has not got." She points out the lilies have rust, the roses have black spot, the compost heap is stone cold.
She doesn't just see a poorly maintained garden. She sees a profound failure of care.
And this is where that central metaphor really locks in, because her knowledge of botany is directly tied to her understanding of human nature.
Exactly. You cannot force a plant to thrive in soil that is hostile to its fundamental makeup. You have to amend the soil, work with reality, not against it.
So when she says the soil can't give what it hasn't got, she's diagnosing Mrs. St. Mom.
Right. Mrs. St. Mom cannot give Laurel unconditional love because she simply doesn't possess it.
And Miss Madrigal's approach to the people is just as radical as her approach to the plants. Look at how she handles Maitland.
This is one of my favorite interactions.
Maitland is having a total meltdown because Pink Bell criticized him from upstairs, and Mrs. St. Mom is just yelling at him. But Miss Madrigal looks at her and says, "Praise is the only thing that brings to life again a man who's been destroyed."
Notice the mechanism of empathy there. It's deeply compassionate, but delivered with total clinical detachment.
Yeah, she doesn't coddle him at all. She doesn't pat his hand or feed into his drama.
She just coldly diagnoses the emotional soil he needs. She sees he's been stripped to the studs by the penal system, and criticism will just cause him to collapse. So she provides structural support without getting tangled in his neuroses.
And then there's how she handles Laurel. Laurel tries her usual tricks, throwing out wild stories, asking inappropriate questions. She even asks if Miss Madrigal is a maiden lady.
And most adults from that era would clutch their pearls or try to discipline her.
But Miss Madrigal just refuses to answer. She just lets the silence hang there.
Which is a massive power move.
She tells Laurel, "I have soft ground and hard ground to my feelings. You should mind where you step."
Laurel realizes instantly that she's completely outmatched. She even says, "She has no weakness. Her eyes see through me. I'm a mouse to her."
It's because Miss Madrigal's confidence comes from this place of profound hidden suffering. We don't know her secret yet, but you can feel it.
Right. Whatever she has survived has burned away all the trivialities of social performance. She has nothing left to prove, so she's immune to a teenager's manipulation.
Okay, so into this already volatile ecosystem walks Olivia, Laurel's mother,
Yeah.
flying in from Arabia, unannounced.
And pregnant with her new husband's child.
Right, and she wants to reclaim Laurel before the new baby is born. The clash between Olivia and her mother, Mrs. St. Mammon, is just brutal.
It's a masterful depiction of how generational trauma functions mechanically.
Mm-hmm.
Mrs. St. Mammon treated Olivia exactly how she's treating Laurel now, as a project.
Mrs. St. Mammon even says, "I was burning for you to cut ice in the world. I had to beat you into beauty. You had to be lit as one lights a lantern, decked like a May tree."
Beat you into beauty. It is such a violent way to describe raising a child.
It makes me think of my gardener analogy again, but taking it further, it's like a gardener who took a plant that was meant to be a simple shrub and aggressively forced it into some unnatural topiary.
That is the perfect analogy, because to make topiary, you aggressively cut away the natural growth. You wrap wire around the branches to force them into a false shape.
Completely ignoring what the plant naturally wants to do.
Exactly. That's what she did to Olivia's mind, and it's what she's doing to Laurel.
Olivia says, "I was always crying out after being simple," but her mother wouldn't let her. So Olivia snapped the wires and escaped.
But she left Laurel behind in that exact same toxic soil.
Yeah, and now Mrs. St. Maum is fiercely defensive of her ownership over Laurel. She accuses Olivia of being a light woman who just floats through life.
But Olivia counters with that devastating observation. You've never been a light woman. You're a dark, mute woman. If there was lightness in you, it was I who lent it to you.
That exposes the absolute emotional vampirism of Mrs. St. Maum. She extracts light from the people she dominates.
And so Laurel is just the battleground. Olivia wants her back out of guilt, and Mrs. St. Maum wants to keep her as a monument to her own existence.
Neither of them is actually looking at who Laurel really is.
No. Laurel is an abstraction to both of them, an unsettled debt for Olivia and property for the grandmother.
Which is why Miss Madrigal's presence is so vital. She's the only adult who sees a deeply frightened child who needs boundaries and truth.
And all this tension builds right up to the judge's luncheon.
Oh, the luncheon. This is the centerpiece of the play.
Mrs. St. Maum invites an old friend to lunch, a circuit judge she affectionately calls Puppy.
He arrives with all the weariness and majesty of the British legal system. But Miss Madrigal orchestrates the strangest seating arrangement.
She forces herself and Laurel to sit at a separate, smaller table, like school children, physically removed from the judge.
Which is highly symbolic, right? She's deliberately removing herself from his immediate gaze because she knows exactly who he is, and she is trying to hide in plain sight.
Yes. But the physical setup also highlights the absurdity of Mrs. St. Maudum's adherence to the old rules. Pink Belle insists on 2 wine glasses per person, even though there's only 1 bottle of wine to share.
Just because that's how it used to be done. It's a ritual completely devoid of meaning. Just like the law can sometimes be a ritual devoid of true justice.
Exactly. And the conversation inevitably turns to crime, because Maitland and Laurel are obsessed with murder trials.
Laurel starts badgering the judge about his job. She wants the gory details.
But the judge responds with this incredibly poignant, exhausted monologue about the realities of the courtroom. He strips away the romanticism.
He talks about the terrible grinding burden of passing judgment, how he has to pray against his own faults, his bias, his vanity.
He admits that when you sit elevated above humanity, everyone sees your faults except yourself.
The description of the jury really struck me. He says they sit there hour after hour, inscrutable, until they grow a communal nose to sniff out weaknesses.
It implies that justice isn't about objectively finding the truth. It's about the collective biases and primal instincts of a room full of strangers deciding if they like you.
He literally admits justice is a gamble, which leads to Laurel asking if the courts work to get at the truth.
And the judge says truth doesn't ring true in a court of law. What rings true is likelihood, probability. The law doesn't want messy reality. It wants a story that makes logical sense.
And this sets up the most powerful quote of the entire broadcast.
It really is the thesis of the story.
The judge recalls a woman he sentenced to death 15 years ago, a woman named Connie Dolly Wallace. He remembers exactly what she said to him just before he sentenced her.
She said, "What I have been listening to in court is not my life. It is the shape and shadow of my life with the accidents of truth taken out of it."
We have to unpack that. The shape and shadow of my life with the accidents of truth taken out of it.
The legal system operates on dry facts. It builds a 2-dimensional narrative based only on what can be proven.
But human life is made up of accidents of truth. The messy, contradictory emotional realities. The unspoken traumas that can't be entered into evidence.
The law judges the shadow. It completely misses the profound depths of the actual human soul.
But I want to push back on the judge here. He sounds so noble talking about this, but ultimately, he still enforces that rigid system. He still condemned her based on that two-dimensional shape.
That is a very fair point. He is part of the machinery.
And as he's telling this story, the pieces finally click together. Because Laurel and Maitland had been snooping in Miss Madrigal's paint box earlier, and they found initials burned into the wood. CDW.
Connie Dolly Wallace.
Miss Madrigal is Connie Dolly Wallace.
She is a convicted murderer.
Sentenced to death by this very judge sitting in the dining room. But she was reprieved at the last minute and served 15 years in prison.
Think about the gravity of this. This quiet, contained woman who paints flowers, who knows everything about chalk soil and empathy, has literally faced the gallows.
It's an incredible revelation. It completely contrasts the judge's rigid institutional view of humanity with Miss Madrigal's lived reality.
Systems only see the shape and shadow. Pink Bell sees the shape and shadow. The law sees it.
So if the law only sees the shadow, who gets to see the real thing? I think the play argues that only someone who has been completely shattered can see the real thing in someone else.
Yes, Miss Madrigal sees the real Laurel. She sees the real Maitland. Because her own shape and shadow was forcibly stripped away in a cell for 15 years.
She knows what it looks like when the performance ends, which leads us right into the climax of the play.
Right. Following the luncheon, Olivia is demanding to take Laurel away. Laurel is backed into a corner.
Her whole identity in this house is built on this theatrical rebellion. She doesn't know how to function outside of it, so she plays her ultimate trump card. She threatens violence.
She implies that if Olivia takes her, she might murder her new stepsister. Laurel says, "They say I'm mad."
It is the ultimate escalation. She expects the adults to recoil in horror, to beg her to calm down. But Miss Madrigal steps out of the shadows.
And think about the risks she is taking here. She's been hiding her identity, trying to eke out a quiet life. If she reveals who she is, she loses her anonymity, her job, everything.
But she realizes that if she stays silent, Laurel will ruin her own life. So she risks everything to stop the cycle. And how she does it is breathtaking.
She doesn't yell or moralize. She wields truth like a scalpel.
Cutting away the rod. Laurel tries to lean on the criminal assault story, and Miss Madrigal calmly exposes it was just a man trying to kiss her.
Laurel leans on the suicide story, and Miss Madrigal bluntly reminds her that her father died of a liver condition.
Laurel is so desperate to hold on to her narrative, she asks, has it got to be the truth? One can lie, but truth is more interesting.
And Miss Madrigal says, then you get better and better at spotting it. You win quick. A straw would break it.
Why is Miss Madrigal the only one who can do this? Because a spoiled teenager threatening to be a murderer is a pathetic joke to an actual reprieved murderer.
Exactly. Laurel's theatrics hold absolutely zero power over a woman who has walked to the edge of the gallows. Miss Madrigal cuts through the nonsense because she knows what a wasted life looks like.
She uses the truth not as a weapon to destroy Laurel, but as an antidote to cure her.
And it's this devastating honesty that finally breaks the spell. By destroying the fake identity, she sets Laurel free.
The topiary wire is cut. Laurel is finally able to just be a scared kid. She stops fighting, packs her bags, and leaves with her mother.
And, sitting here on Chesterton Radio looking at all these themes of truth and mercy, I can't help but think of Father Brown.
Oh, absolutely. Father Brown would have figured Miss Madrigal out in 5 minutes.
Right, because Chesterton's whole point with Father Brown is that appearances deceive, and the institutional systems often miss the actual soul of the person.
Father Brown operates exactly like Miss Madrigal does here. He looks past the shape and shadow. He would have seen her repentance and her deep spiritual grounding, and he wouldn't have judged her for the past.
Exactly. He knows sin is real, but he also knows mercy is greater. He understands that people are infinitely more mysterious than the systems we build to judge them.
It also heavily reminds me of C.S. Lewis, like The Great Divorce.
Oh, for sure. How so?
Well, the characters in the chalk garden are kind of like the ghosts in The Great Divorce who are trying to become solid, right? They're trapped in their own neuroses and self-deceptions.
That is a brilliant connection. Mrs. St. Mom is definitely like one of those ghosts who refuses to let go of her earthly vanity. She'd rather be a shadow in her own crumbling house than embrace the painful reality of the solid world.
And Miss Madrigal is the solid person. She has gone through the absolute fire, and it has made her real. She's experienced that hidden transformation Lewis talks about in Mere Christianity or The Weight of Glory.
becoming who she was meant to become through the hardest possible process.
Exactly. Which brings us to the aftermath of Laurel's departure, where the symbolism of the chalk garden comes to its full realization.
The nurse comes downstairs and announces that Pink Belle has suddenly died.
The symbol of the rigid, unforgiving past is dead. The old system has finally collapsed.
And the judge prepares to leave, deeply shaken. He's come face to face with the reality that the woman he condemned to die is standing in front of him, reformed and undeniable.
The legal system's failure is laid completely bare in front of him, so Mrs. St. Malm is left utterly alone.
Her granddaughter is gone. Her butler is dead. Her illusions are shattered. She is the chalk garden baron, stripped of all the exotic plants she tried to force into the ground.
But then, in this really quiet moment of vulnerability, she asks Miss Magical to stay, and Miss Magical agrees.
That final scene is quietly revolutionary. They sit down together with the gardening catalog.
They aren't going to order rare, inappropriate flowers anymore. They discuss using potash and granular peat to amend the soil.
They're finally going to work with the chalk rather than fighting it.
It's just beautiful. Because the chalk garden is Laurel. It's Mrs. St. Malm. It's Miss Madrigal. It's all of us. You cannot plant an exotic flower in harsh chalk and expect it to thrive by sheer will.
You really can't. Think about your own family or your workplace. How often do we see someone try to force a person to thrive in an environment that goes against their fundamental nature?
You can't force a traumatized child to heal by ignoring their wounds. You have to accept the soil you have. You have to amend it with patience, care, and truth.
Healing is not about uprooting our lives and pretending we have perfect soil. It's about doing the hard, slow work of cultivation right where we are.
And speaking of cultivation, I have to highlight what is easily my favorite line in the entire broadcast. Mrs. St. Malm asks Miss Madrigal if she wants to throw her 15 years in prison away in the dustbin.
And Miss Madrigal replies, "Not my 15 years. I value them. They made me."
That is the ultimate triumph of the human spirit. She doesn't deny her past. She doesn't minimize her suffering or the horror of what she endured.
She recognizes that the harshest punishments and failures can forge the most unbreakable people. She is the eagle on the rock because of the 15 years, not in spite of them.
She has achieved a level of integration that these supposedly free characters could only dream of.
We spend so much energy trying to curate our shape and shadow for the world. We want everyone to see a perfect topiary. But real life happens in the messy, alkaline soil.
And true grace is found when someone looks at your barren soil and instead of walking away, they say, let's add some potash. Let's get to work.
At the very end of the play, Miss Madrigal notes there is one flower, the diorama, that the book says simply won't grow on chalk. But she turns to Mrs. St. Malm and says, if I stay with you and we work together, we can make it do so.
Such a perfect ending. So as we sign off from the little station on Commercial Street tonight, we want to leave you with a question to mull over. What is the chalk garden in your own life right now?
What is that relationship or project that seems absolutely impossible to cultivate?
And instead of uprooting everything in frustration, what would happen if you finally stopped fighting the soil and just started tending to it?